It's fantastic to have Madhukar Unial, who is the head of solution engineering for customer experience applications at Oracle India. Madhukar, thanks so much for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here, Jesse.
Thank you. And, I'm seeing a bit of relaxation on workplace norms these days, more casual clothes, and there's a greater emphasis on having fun at work and also that work should be fun. Now, I found your research pretty interesting, and one of the big insights was that consumers and customers are also keen to engage with companies in a more entertaining way, which is kind of a surprise, given the usual situation. So I wanted to chat with you a little bit on how to do it right. Now, personally, I think the first time I've used humor in advertising was 1996, the launch of RPG Cellular. And we went with cartoons, like billboards all across Chennai. And they were really showing that our stuff was really good and the competitors, connectivity was so bad. So you had guys hanging out of windows and so on. And that did pretty well. And since then, I've used him in PPT decks and even in my corporate career, even my recent book has cartoons in them. So, first off, you personally, when was the first time you used humor in a business situation and how did it go for you?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Great question. And one thing, right, throughout this conversation that we're having, I'll make sure I have the smile on my face because it is all about humor and happiness. So to answer your question, Jesse, I've many times used humor in business situations, and I must say it works every time. The reason for that is because I believe humor is a universal language, and if done right, it helps you start a conversation. It helps lighten the mood and have more conversation at a relaxed way, which is always good, whether it's with your friends, your coworkers, or your customers or target audience, as we call it. So whether I'm starting my PowerPoint presentation sometimes with the Dilbert cartoons or calling out, at the start of the presentation that, hey, I've got 93 slides, only 93 slides to cover in next 1 hour. It just, gives a sense of relaxation, cracks the atmosphere up a little bit. But one situation I remember, Jesse, is when we were doing some of these events for, Oracle CX across the country. And I remember it was Gurgaon. And you were there very much, Jesse. So I remember. And I decided to try something different. This was, I think, a few years back. So, and you would know, right, that when we are doing these events, it's kind of one way. Somebody is on the stage and trying to showcase some surveys or some solutions, presentations, and so on.
It's usually very one-sided. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. And what I decided to do was a little different. I thought I'll put a large QR code on the screen. Okay, and I will ask the audience to take your best friend out of your pocket, that's your mobile phone, and put the camera to the QR code. And the moment they put up the camera to the QR code, there was a question which flashed on the screen, which said, would you like me to run a live demonstration today or the regular PowerPoint presentation? And an overwhelming 95%, guess what? No brainer. They said, we want to see a live demo. Except those 5%, which I'm sure were my friends who did not, they not wanted to see me embarrassed. And then I said, look, no way, I'm not going to do a live demonstration on stage. It's law of Murphy. What if something breaks down and, it will be an embarrassing situation for me. Then there was another question on your screen. I need your answer to that one. And the next question was, do you hate me? And an overwhelming 75% then said, yes, we hate you. You said you were going to do a live demo. And that's, so, it was, what it did was it made it a conversation with the audience, right? They were giving me a feedback. I was taking the feedback. The audience had a good laugh. And what followed was a very engaged discussion, not a presentation. It was a discussion, the audience and the session, and I got some really good feedback. So yeah, I mean, humor, like I said, it's a universal language, always helps. We just got to be creative, and technology is there to help us. For me, it was the QR code, and the way to get it on the mobile.
I think it was more than the QR code. I think it was the idea, right? The
Yeah.
QR code was just the way to implement an idea. And again, that stems from really an inner desire to do things in a more fun, engaging way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what customers really want. And your survey also says that 78% of them have said that they actually spend more money with brands that use humor. Now, again, like I said, that's the insight or that's a desire. But do you have any thoughts on how people can use their customer engagement programs to deliver this human or more humorous way of engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the survey, Jesse, like you mentioned, is really, really unique, right? I mean, the name itself, the happiness survey, and humor right at the center of it. And yeah, what I figured out after going through the survey is that humor is a serious, serious business. Lots and lots of insight from that survey. Now, how can businesses bring this dimension or element into the conversation or the campaigns or the communications? Is they need to start thinking how can they have, first of all, bring these small little interjections of humor, like let's say funny ads, like you said, you thought about something, bringing in some cartoons and some funny ads, right, all over Chennai. So that's one thing, right? How can you bring in funny ads in your campaign, which has some emojis, possibly using some cartoons of sorts, funny subjects line into the email campaigns. I'm seeing that quite often, actually. So brands are taking little bold step in becoming humorous and a little fearless. In fact, 77% of the people surveyed said that they are more likely to buy from salesperson who are funny. Now I'm talking about salesperson, in a typical B2B. Uh, so some traits that salespeople can develop, there are many examples, Jesse, of funny chatbots or digital assistants, right, that we engage with. Some of them call me by my nickname. I'll share some of those examples with you. But the survey also says that 25% of business leaders are actually, um, using humor in their CX strategy, which means overwhelming 75% are not looking at humor as part of their CX or marketing or communication strategy. So yeah, I would say those small interjections needs to be thought of.
Yeah, so that's actually a major challenge, right? Your customers are telling you that, look, we want humor, we like brands, we want to spend more money. And on the other hand, you're saying business leaders are like, not doing that at all.
Yeah.
And I understand that that's a natural fear because it's also something new and you're not used to it. But is there a way that we can use technology in some way to mitigate that and deliver humor in a nice, positive, gentle way, that the sort that doesn't get your shops burned or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I come from a technology background, so I believe that whenever you are in doubt or you are hesitant, or if there is iota of doubt in your mind, uh, test it, right? You can test it. You can see if it really works. What is the data telling you from your testing, experiments? And then you can take the right data-driven decision. Data will never lie, right? It will tell you very binary, yes or no. And I'm not saying that all businesses will use humor, or they should use humor because of the nature of the business, but most of them will benefit out of humor. Now what I mean by that, let me share an example with you. A brand may be running, let's say, a regular newsletter series, right, to the audience and to their customers. How about running a parallel Fun Friday series for a select audience? See it for a week or two. Just look at the engagement rate, the click rate, in the digital terms, the time spent on that digital property or those newsletters. And then you can see how one content versus another is giving you the result, and that will throw some light at, okay, it makes sense, at least for the select audience. When I ran a test for a few days or weeks, it is giving me more engagement rate, right? Likewise, for chatbots, you can divert a small amount of traffic which is coming to your digital property, a small amount of traffic to, let's say, a chatbot which is humor enabled, you know, which has some witty keywords, right? And compare the engagement between a regular chatbot conversation versus, let's say, a humor enabled chatbot, and see what's the difference. So I honestly believe, if you're in doubt, if you want to take the right decision, test it. And at Oracle, we have these tools, right? And I come from the technology side of, solution engineering, and we have these solutions which allow CX professionals to run these tests, multivariate testing, to see how customer segments across, my engagement channels are responding to the communication. How are they how the conversation going? And it also, gives you an idea of what sort of experiments on the experience is giving me what kind of results, and what's the winning combination of content. So to answer your question, Jesse, I would say test it, try it, see if it works.
Yeah.
Go with data, not with anybody's advice.
That's great advice. And I think, but that's a follow-on piece of that is that, I can test it, but I think our fear is sometimes humor doesn't travel well. What works for women may not work for men. What works in Hindi does not translate into Tamil. And we've all seen those, hilarious translation bloopers. Um, and I think in today's world, it's one of your concerns is how do I keep my silos actually as silos?
Yeah.
So how would you what advice do you have for marketers and business owners who are coming with the fear that perhaps, when I send out my campaign, somehow it will go to the wrong location or the wrong person, and then they will laugh in a bad way?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's a very valid, point, and I believe that will be like a concern, when doing these testing, or let me call it being a little fearless with humor. It's taken completely out of context and probably in a very flip way. um, I think once we start taking these baby steps towards humor, and I'll share some examples with you, we we need to collect the signals back, right? I will share an example of something that, we were running, trying to train, let's say, a conversational chatbot. And we tuned it in a way that if the name is more than eight letters, then it would ask for, well, can I call you by your nickname? So let's say if I put my name into the chatbot, it will say, can I call you Mad? Now that's
Very
funny.
Starbucks.
And here is the trick, right? So can I call you Mad? And that's the question. So if I say yes, just imagine it's like a flow chart. So if I say yes, which means, okay, first gate is, first step is crossed, which means this person on the other side is okay with a little bit of, being a
Right.
little informal. Then it asks me the next set of questions, right? Okay, Matt, now tell me, how can I provide you the best ever experience you've had with a chatbot? Now that's funny. This is what my concern is. All right, I'm going to put you on hold for 3 hours. Is that okay? With an emoji. Now imagine it's like a flow chart. One, one yes, no is leading into another. And what's happening behind the scene, it's profiling me, that I'm someone who is okay to have an informal and a relaxed conversation. Probably there is someone else who will say, no, I'm here for the business, no nickname calling. I have this problem, solve it for me, dear chatbot. And likewise, this is just an example of chatbot, but we engage with the brands over, on the inbound digital property, over email channels, notification, web push. We talk to the contact center agents. There are sales rep we are talking to. These are all signals, right? If we can somehow also gauge or capture the humor quotient, we have EQ, we have IQ. How about HQ? Not the headquarter, but the humor quotient. And then we profile our, customers, our audience in a way that these are okay, relaxed, and informal. Now, these are really strict. And it's not a rocket science, because, the technology today, like, let's say, a CDP, a customer data platform, and all, allow you to capture these signal and run some, your own algorithms on them. So I think, here is where technology can really help you. It's just that we need to look at humor as a possible signal, and that's possible.
That's like a new space altogether, right? I mean, typically when I wanted to do humor in the past, I needed a copywriter or, my billboard designer, and that was all really. But when we talk about a chatbot and the entire conversation, that's like a different kind of creativity and also a lot of clarity from the brand that I'm okay to go this direction for those who are willing. And by and large, I don't think we've experienced that. I mean, I know you're giving me examples, but most of the time I just get these really automated, please key in your 16-digit, debit card number. And if you have forgotten, too bad.
Yeah,
Just key in your 20-digit account number. And if
that's
you
right.
have forgotten that, how about your date of birth and your, first pet dog? And, we're just having those conversations. But so what do you think? I mean, I actually think that it could be an actual differentiator for organizations when they're able to communicate in a more friendly manner, and B, if they're able to translate that to the so many languages and nuances that we have in India. So just like what kind of adaptations can Oracle users or any other CRM users for that matter, what do they need to know or think about to make it happen?
Yeah, so from make it happen. First of all, like you said, Jesse, it's something which probably is a crazy idea, um, but with these small interventions, these small baby step approach of trying and testing, let's just see what response we get, is possible. Yes, it the campaigns, the creatives, the content has to be thought through, and likewise the data which is being captured and what signals do we actually go into the HQ. The humor question has to be thought through again, and it will require the creative team and the data team to come together. Where Oracle and what I've seen is some of the solutions that we're working on are primarily around next best action, like our next gen CDP, the customer data platform. It has some out of the box models which can look at your historical information, which can look at people like you who buy things and suggest what is the next best action or next best offer, you know to offer you, or to basically present to you as a customer based on a lot of data points, right? um, how about we get a next best humor, or the next best joke, to
Okay.
crack with the customer. To be honest, it's not impossible. On a serious note, uh, all of my interactions are anyway captured, right, in this massive 360, 780, or all the digital signals, all my interaction, to the point where, when was I on your digital property, what was I chatting with the chatbot, when did I call the contact center, when did I open email, newsletter, and so on, and where am I clicking, what am I looking at. All of those interactions are tracked anyway. We just need to find out, you know basis what can we derive a next, let's say your HQ level. Now, it could be based on the past communications that you've responded to, or the signals, the chatbot example that I just gave, the response to those questions in a more informal way. And then we can use all those data signals to bring in, let's say, our own models to, let's say that, yes, this person has a high HQ, or is okay to have an informal conversation, versus the other segment of people who are probably just here to strictly respond to some communication. Let's take your example, right? uh, you're on the let's say the IVR, and it's asking you for the 16-digit card number, and it just throws a funny question at you, right? Or let's say a very informal question at you: have you forgotten? Would you like me to call you at 12 in the midnight? and, and let's look at your answer, Jesse. If you're saying, this is crap, and you hang up the phone, that's a clear signal from you that you were here for car detail. But you say,
Sure.
why not? And that's a signal that we can capture and profile you in a way that, yeah, you're someone who can have a conversation. Of course, we'll arrange a call back for you. So, yeah. I think when we are looking at next best offer, next best action, why not next best humor? And is it entirely impossible? I don't think so. Provided we have those signal, and it has to be thought through grounds up, is what I believe.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, also to get the nuances is super important because, so I don't know, but like I'm on the board of a hotel company. And one of the things the chairman always says is that the soup can be the same every day, but depending on whether you've come after a promotion or you've been fired, it will taste totally different. And you'll blame the waiter, you'll blame the chef, but it's the same soup. It's just you. Today you're grumpy. You don't want to,
That's right. Yeah.
right? So the same person who yesterday was super chirpy and said, "Oh yeah, I'm here for fun,"
Yeah.
and then suddenly makes a bad investment. Next day he's grumpy and doesn't want to have any fun with his bank. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that you outlined that it's also possible to dynamically change to next best humor and allow the person to. It's, I guess, the equivalent of your facial expression when you're like, I don't want any joke,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's really good kind of guardrails that brands can put in place.
Yeah.
So thank you. I think we've covered a lot of ground in terms of how to put the fun back into CRM.
Yeah.
And I think the research is awesome in that it encourages us that it's safe to do so. And this is something that customers really want. So it's pretty unique in that way.
Yeah.
But tell me about yourself. You'd mentioned that we met at events in Gurgaon, but I guess since 2020, events have been pretty rare for everybody.
Yeah.
And, it's been different. So what would you say were like your big professional learnings over the last couple of years?
Yeah, Jesse, first of all, I think thanks to the God Almighty, we are here. We've crossed those three big waves, and I think it was really a tough time that all of
Hang on,
us.
let me knock wood. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we passed really a tough time as one, right? And really from a professional learning, if I really have to um, call out the top 3 points, which I can sum it up really all my learning. First is adapt to change. And I think that's what pandemic did to all of us. It shook our world upside down. And the businesses who realized that they have to adapt to change quickly were the one who were more successful than the others, right? So I think that's one thing. And changes are everywhere in the organization. So we must adapt to changes, big professional learning. Then work for anywhere model, the virtual engagements are here to stay, and I think this thing has changed fundamentally post pandemic. I mean look at us right now. We used to meet at the events, but now we're having this conversation over Zoom, and this is a new normal, right? And I think that's fundamentally changed in a good and bad both ways, because we miss meeting people face to face and in person. uh, the third is, which I personally realized, especially because there was so much of distraction, right? Full of news, mostly bad. Um, we were juggling between home and work and kids, and all the news floating around, mental stability and all of that. I've realized that having a routine, and you got to stick to it, is so very important as a professional, because of the distraction. There were so many of them. So those were really the three things which I, as a my professional learning has been: adapt to change, embrace the new normal, work from anywhere model, the remote work culture and the remote collaboration. And third is the routine, which is so very important. And pandemic has taught us the meaning, the real meaning of having a routine and following it.
I think that the last one is what I really struggle with. I mean, I just cannot, too used to having someone else drive your routine, and now you have to do it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so last question for you is, based on all your learnings and based on your report, and of course, based on your experience with customer experience and CRM, what's the advice you would like to share with marketers?
Yeah. So one, as we've been discussing, number one is take humor seriously. It's a since we're on this topic of happiness and humor, first thing I'll say is humor must be taken seriously as us, brands and marketers and CX professional. It's a serious business. especially if you look at some of the survey results and some of the specific results which are coming out of India, and what Indian consumers are saying, what Indian businesses are saying. We just need to start looking at this new dimension, I believe. Second is use technology, because technology is here to help you. It is humanly impossible to look at all of those signals, take meaning out of it. It's just humongous amount of data. So start collecting those signals, start thinking how will you collect the humor signal, and point to use the data into the conversation. And I think that's the second advice, if you really ask me, going again through the results and what humor means to the business and to the customers. And third is try and test it, right? Like I said, technology will help you look at the data in a very, very meaningful way. So if a survey result says humor is important, well, you can try it out yourself and see, look at the results, look at the data, and take the right next best action, next best decision on your CX strategy. Finally, I'll just say, please visit oracle.com/cx/happiness. Again, oracle.com/cx/happiness, and you will see some fantastic coverage on the survey. Some of the reports which are completely happiness report, which gives you a good detail into what customers are saying, what brands are thinking, from a whole new dimension of happiness and humor.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. And, I actually do write the report, because when you approach customers and say, let's have some fun, there's always, yeah, but, customers won't like it. So at least now you've got something to back that up with, right? And a piece of data point to say, let's try it a little bit, all humor isn't dangerous. So, so I think it's been lovely talking with you, and I miss, the food that we used to have together as
Oh
well.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah, especially the good, yeah, the North food one.
Gurgaon food, yes.
No, I like the Bangalore one as well, by the way. One of
Really?
the, yeah, but not
Okay.
as good as the Gurgaon one.
Yeah, so I miss that. But other than that, I think there's been a great interaction, and looking forward to catching up with you again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Likewise, Jesse. Great talking to you. Pleasure
Thank you.
always.